Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Masashi. I am CAAMFest Festival Director. I am thrilled to be with you today. You just watched Chosen Fam Season 1, and you are one of the lucky ones because this series just premiered about a week and 2 weeks ago. So we're thrilled to have this as part of CAAMFest. This series is eligible for our Audience Award. If you loved it, if you think it should win, please click the link above the video player. Okay, I am so happy to have the creator, writer, actor with us, Kyle Chu, and co-writer, executive producer, Donna Mae Foronda. Welcome.
Hey, Masashi.
Hello, how are you all
Hey,
doing?
thanks for having us.
We're so excited to be here. Back.
Yeah.
Yes, my only sadness is that we're not all together in one space. I'm giving you kind of a virtual hug from here. So full disclosure to our audiences, I've known Kyle and Donna for, I guess, about 10 years. We just talked about this for about 10 years now, before there was a Chosen Fam. They were my Chosen Fam because they were at CAAM as CAAM interns. And I have to say, I am so proud of both of you. Over the time that I've known you, you have created some wonderful films that we have selected at the festival. You've made some amazing music videos. Kyle, we can totally talk about some of these wild music videos that brought the fire department to the CAAM office at one point. Also, Kyle's drag is on point. So many amazing things. You are both so creative. So congratulations. I'm also proud that you're both so committed to the community and telling really wonderful stories. So that's me kind of gushing right now. Let's talk about Chosen Fam, the beginning of it. Can you both talk about why this is a series you both wanted to tell?
Yeah. So first of all, this is based on a true story of my best friends and I creating an all queer and trans people of color band and touring the US. And actually, it came on the heels of like a pretty devastating breakup for me, in which I had to like kind of recollect and reestablish like my community and like who I felt comfortable with. And so I was very fortunate to have found the DIY music community in San Francisco. There are a bunch of freaks and healers and artists and really rad people who were really there for me when I needed it. And beyond that, just wanting to paint an accurate and colorful portrait of the Bay Area in terms of gender diversity, in terms of racial diversity. Like all of these communities are very intertwined in the Bay Area, and it's in stark opposition to a lot of the queer series that we see today, like Looking and the L Word and stuff like that. It's very gender segregated and very focused on one contingent of the LGBTQ population. But here in SF, it doesn't look like that. It looks like a lot of people coming together for different reasons, forming punk houses, being in gritty punk bands, and really wanting to relay that vibrant community.
That's great. Donna?
Yeah, and just to add on to that, all of what Kyle just said, but I know for me, like I'm born and raised in the Bay Area and just know about this lively art scene, especially even through interning at CAAM and from South Bay, but always visited San Francisco and just loved the art community there and knew that I wanted to live here at one point. But unfortunately, I feel like the only means for me to live here was through tech. And so I was very like saturated in tech for a very long time and still am, honestly. But I knew, and when I saw San Francisco portrayed in like mainstream media, it was all that. And I knew we were just so much more than that. And so when Kyle came to me with this project, I'm like, that's it. That's what the world needs to see, like this authentic, artistic San Francisco.
Yes, queen.
And you know, from what I have known from both of you, you know, I've seen some really beautiful short films, and again with the music videos. This is a series. This is very ambitious, right? This is quite lengthy, and I know that, you know, this is a real indie series with an indie budget, but you do wonders with what you have. And maybe Kyle, to your point, and Donna, being here locally, I think you pulled all of the creative people that you knew to work together on this project. Can you talk about the filming of this series here in the Bay Area?
Sure. So I think you're definitely right. We were working on a micro budget. We had to reel through different resources and like do crowdfunding campaigns, tap into our networks, our communities for, and even reach out and liaison with like local restaurants who might be able to contribute food for meals on set. Like it was every single type of string that needed to be pulled. We tried to pull in a respectful way, of course, but a lot of it was just basically relying on the network and connections we had, being able to evangelize people through the vision of it. I think especially now, but is always pertinent, is this vision for having more diverse and inclusive storytelling, which is one of the things that unified Donna and I as interns at CAAM and what brought us to CAAM in the first place. And so being able to relay that message clearly and boldly was definitely something that motivated a lot of people to want to help. And I think something that we realized is that there are so many people who do want to help in any way that they can, whether it's through like helping with graphic design, helping with food, helping with hold a boom mic, right? And so it was really definitely powered by the community in that way. And being able to keep them in a continuous loop of like gratitudes and being like, thank you so much, you're a part of this family, you're a part of this production now. And I think being a part of this production experience is definitely what drew a lot of people to the project as well. Not to mention the fact that it's very San Francisco. Like we tried to insert as many landmarks as we could. The entire score is all original music by Bay Area-based queer and trans POC artists. The casting, all of it was a labor of love and a labor of an entire community.
Yeah.
That's great. Donna, anything on your end? Yeah.
I think the one thing that I take with indie, or the one lesson I've learned with indie production, is just the answer is always no if you don't ask. So I feel like just asking people, like you never know what you can get. Like I think some of the venues we got for free, we just asked. And also just with tapping into the community, even like social media, just posting on Facebook, there are a bunch of groups out there with people looking for auditions, looking to help out as PAs. And with the people that we found, asking for their friends and tapping into their community. But yeah, all about community.
Yeah, I also wanted to, now that you mentioned that, Donna, like when we filmed the sex scene in the pilot or the like S&M party, that actually took place at Nob Hill Theater, and it was the last night that Nob Hill Theater was open. And so,
oh wow,
right. And so, considering how many adult films were filmed there, and then the last one was this, I think is like really wild. But I think our resourcefulness also comes in timing. It's in terms of like seeing what businesses or what companies or what et cetera might be open to collaborating, given there's an opportunity to do so. And we were really fortunate to have stumbled upon that in our pre-production.
That's great. And Kyle, you talked about this kind of the starting point for Chosen Fam based on your own experiences, the breakup, maybe your own identity here in the Bay Area. It's an ensemble cast, and you've got a lot of amazing actors in this. You also have a lot of amazing other threads and themes being explored. So can you talk about kind of the seed of your project, but then starting to expand it out? Like, how did you decide what stories you wanted to explore with these characters?
Absolutely. So this is where it gets kind of sticky because these characters are based on real people. However, like any resemblance is coincidental, et cetera. This is like an entirely fictional story, right? So it's not necessarily expressing our beliefs or opinions of these said people, right? But we started with the inspiration of these real life figures. And then we consulted community members. We did focus group interviews with people whose experiences reflect Maddox's and Danny's and Evie's and mine. And so we asked them, like, when put in this situation, what would you do? What do you feel like we should cover within this story? What are like important details? Like, for example, with the Maddox and Anna story, it's actually based on our friends who are raising a gender neutral child. And so we had to ask them about the different methods of insemination and why they chose what, how did they resource this, et cetera? What were the challenges? What were the interpersonal challenges? And so we felt like having these real life accounts really colored the story in kind of a relatable and factual way, as opposed to just kind of drawing it from our imagination, which we felt was maybe didn't have as much integrity.
Yeah, that's so interesting. There's what I'm hearing, at least right now, is that there is this, this is a narrative. This is a story that you wanted to tell, but maybe your mission of kind of telling more authentic, inclusive stories meant that there is a certain amount of maybe ownership to what the story is, or finding truth, real truth in what the stories are going to be told, and then having people that who live lives, right, that are authentic to these characters. Something that I hear a lot about kind of in the media landscape is more films that can be inclusive, and definitely films that include kind of a broader BIPOC community. And I think your film does a perfect example of that. And it seems like from the very beginning, and maybe your career as an artist as well, I think that's there. It's not something that you threw on later on, right? That's there from the beginning. And I am curious, you've already kind of answered that through your last question or your answer, but for filmmakers right now who are developing stories that go beyond their own community and want to explore maybe their identity in relation to other characters, like, what do you think is a good way for them to approach stories that may not, with characters that may not be their own experience, but that you want to do right to them and those characters? Like, how would you recommend people approach those kind of stories?
Absolutely. I think this is a really pertinent and also timely question considering our landscape right now. And I think part of it, I would defer to Donna because of how she renders specific scenes. But I think our consulting people whose experiences are reflected in these identities was paramount. Understanding that even though you think you have a certain picture from your vantage point of a specific experience, there are always going to be details, there are always going to be elements that escape your view, right? And wanting to be mindful of that blind spot, and more so to interrogate it through the lens of somebody whose experience that reflects. So it's important to interview these people. It's important to, instead of creating story out of thin air, to source from the story that's already there. I think on the other hand of that, which complicates this, is that when it comes time to write these experiences out, something that I learned is like, you always have to put yourself in the character's shoes and say, what would this person do? And so having that sort of level of compassion and empathy for the character is like what creates this universal humanizing experience that draws all of us to film, right? And I think handling things with respect, knowing that if you don't know enough about a certain situation or a certain predicament, being able to acknowledge that and being able to go to the source for that. I think what Donna did really, really well in terms of like rendering scenes, like two of the most memorable scenes to me are like when Evie and Danny are rapping in the car, and when Danny is talking to her mom, and they're both so touching in very specific ways. And I think drawing from her own authenticity and drawing from her own experience with her mother and the connection there is what brought those scenes to life. And so that was the perfect balance, I think, between talking to certain people about their experiences and bringing her own agency and experience to that.
Yeah, I think with the stories we have, they're obviously very diverse. But really, there's always going to be kind of like a commonality with all the stories, even if it's just like a thin line, like a mother-child relationship. And I think that's like a universal theme that, I mean, at least when I'm writing the characters, I'm like, this has to come through, or that they're speaking to me in my head, and expressing like their relationships with relatives and whatnot. And just to piggyback off of all of what you said, Kyle, I really like, this is one of the first projects where I did talk to people before actually writing. And I think for that, I was more like scared to just ask people. But everyone's really open and everyone wants their stories to be told, that like, from what I've experienced. And so it goes back to like asking to film at a location. All you have to do is ask, and people are willing to share their stories. And then another thing I wanted to add is kind of the process that we wrote. We talked about characters for a long time before we even put like pen on paper. I want to say months even, where we just like talked about Maddox. And I think that helped so much because it just built their like a three-dimensional character. And so when I did start writing those scenes, I'm like, oh, well, they're talking to me right now. They're standing right next to me. I know exactly what they would be saying. That, and I also knew that I never wanted to be like the final person to look at a script. Like I always wanted feedback. We wanted to share with people to see like if they related to this, if this sounded right. And opening that to a bigger audience.
Totally. I definitely want to second that about the humility and like bringing it across people and gathering their experiences. And also, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but I just wanted to say, I think there are a lot of storytellers who approach different experiences from their own and think that they're going to draw on the Black experience or the trans experience or whatever, and that it's this like very general, broad stroke. But I think it's like the opposite approach, because it's like, one, you can't create one story that represents an entire community and no actor can carry that burden on their shoulders. It's really getting into who that specific character is individually and all the specific details that make up their experience. And then we hope that the impact is going to be that it adds to the rich tapestry of everything that community is, right? And so I think that's just like an important point of clarification.
I think that's great. And I think that for filmmakers who are working on a script, potentially they might think all these added layers of checking in with community, having that humility, talking to people might be things that are added work. But in reality, it seems like from what you're saying, it really added a lot more beauty and a lot more layers and made the project even stronger by going through that. We are running a little out of time, but we did a call out for questions from the community for you all. So we have a video question. So let's go to that now.
Awesome.
Hey, Kyle, HP Mendoza here in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, but rocking the Bay Area pride. Congratulations on Chosen Fam Season 1. I think it's a tremendous achievement in QT POC media. My question's a twofer. First question, for you growing up with regards to your ethnic and or sexual identity, how accurate do you think representation was in mainstream media? And two, how did those feelings around representation in mainstream media inform how you created Chosen Fam?
And Donna, you can answer that question as well.
First of all, it's amazing that we just got a question from HP, because HP is like one of my heroes. But I would say that a lot of the representations I saw growing up of Asian Americans was very like textbook stereotype. Like a lot of it was like, especially non-indie works, kind of dismissed the Asian characters to being like submissive or nerdy or perpetual foreigner. We're familiar with all of these tropes, right? And I think in doing so, it not only condensed what I thought Asian Americans were, but also what I thought Asian Americans could be. And so I feel like my possibility was definitely restricted in that way. And inversely, queer experiences on screen were largely like white, cis, and upper middle class, which I feel like did not accurately represent me. And also I felt like a lot of these characters often dismissed Asian characters of their own. And so it was very hard to find an accurate and dignified representation of queer Asian characters. And I felt a lot of queer representations too were just like marred with tragedy and so heavy. And we wanted to create a counterpoint to that, where these characters are multidimensional and contradictory and confused and messy and authentic in that. And I hope that we did justice to that vision.
I know we're running out of time, so hopefully I'll make this short. But I think my first experience of just Asian representation on mainstream media is just seeing Lea Salonga's name in the credits during Aladdin. And I remember my mom pausing the VHS and like everyone was just like in awe. And I remember that moment so much. And I was like, wow, we should actually see her though, like instead of just putting her name on the credits. So I think from that moment, I'm just like, well, we need to put Asians in front of the screen and visually see that. But yeah, I think that's the first thing that came to mind. Also, Fruit Fly was my first CAAM Film Festival movie, so it was great.
Oh my God, me too.
Yeah.
Okay, we're probably there together.
Yeah.
It's a full circle situation. So this is the beginning of your run. How can people follow your journey? How can people follow your project as you move forward?
Yeah, so feel free to follow us on, we're most active on Instagram, so Chosen Fam Series on Instagram, or facebook.com/chosenfamseries. We post updates, cute photos, videos, things to delight and tickle your senses.
All right, well, I think we are out of time, so I want to thank you both so much. Congratulations again. This is a really fabulous series. I hope season 1 is is a hint of additional seasons to come our way, hopefully in the future. But Donna and Kyle, thank you again. I hope everyone here enjoyed the program, and we will see you at a future CAAMFest event. Thank you all so much. Bye.